Today is Gittin Samechet. We are going to start at the bottom of Samechet, about one, two, three, four, five lines from the bottom. So we are going to be talking here about something that comes from the Sefer Refuot. This is like a book that was possibly written by Shlomo Amelech. That's actually what the Rashba and Rambam say, that it was a book where they compiled like all kinds of medications and possibilities of like to heal the body and different kind of ailments. So another possibility is actually it was written by one of Noah's sons, who when they were like, they contracted all kinds of like sicknesses when they were on the Teva, and Noah's son was sent up to Gan Eden to actually learn how to like, heal everyone and then send back. So Chazal actually was very concerned about the fact that, good morning, Robert, we just started. So Chazal was very concerned that people would actually take this literally and not have any confidence into Hashem potentially like, healing them. And they understood that most of the time the reason why people were sick was because they were doing avirot. And so they approved for Chizkiyahu to actually remove the Sefer Refuot, and so that people like would like restart really davening and doing the right thing when it came to making sure that they actually got healed. So part of the of what came with that, though, is at the same time they didn't want people to forget about it and to forget about all these various like trufot, and so that's why they made sure that it was included in the Gemara to make sure that people knew that it was part of the Torah, even though Rabbi Akiva Eger said that under no circumstances anyone should ever try to use any of those refuot. Bezman hazeh, it's like, it's completely meaningless. The other thing is like, we don't even know 3/4 of these herbs that like they're using. We don't even know what they are. And you'll see like, it's that we don't know the names we have. And so it would be very difficult for us to find them. And the other thing is like, we need to really show Akadosh Baruch Hu that we trust that he's the one who's going to, to heal us. Okay, so let's get started because it's very long. Ledama de Resha. So for people who have actually, massive headaches, like, it's like it feels like this blood that is like on what in the specific part of the head. Leate shurevina uvina ve'asar dara. So you bring boxwood, willow, fresh myrtle. Myrtle is one of the things that we take, like, in the Arava. Vezeta, vechalifa, vechilfe de yama, veyavla. Olive, poplar, cloves, and yavla. Yavla is some kind of an herb. That's what Rashi says, but we can't even identify specifically what it was. Vedishlukin heu behade hadade. You take all of these herbs, you boil them together. ולנטול תלת מאה כסאי אחי גיסה דרשע, ותלת מאה כסאי אחי גיסה דרשע. And so you pour 300 cups of this concoction on one side of your head and 300 cups on the other side of your head, and it's supposed to actually like heal your headache. Good luck. Ve'ilo, if that doesn't work, leyate verada hivra deka'e bachar dera. You need to find a white rose, and that rose has to have like all of its leaf on one side, and you velish leke and velintol shetin kase achai gisa deresha. And so you boil this like rose in water, and then you pour 60 cups of this concoction on one side of your head, veshitin kasai achai gisa deresha, and then you pour 60 cups on the other side of your head. All right, so another thing that is actually now we're going to try and heal migraine headaches. Migraine headaches are actually headaches that are only one side of their head. It didn't hit me until, like, Ellie said yesterday, it's like means like, it's like half. So it's only, I never thought about it before. But anyway, so that's a good one. You have to go and find a wild chicken. And then you take like a coin that is very sharp, and you need to slaughter the wild chicken with it. Ahahu gisa dechayev le. And then what you do is, like, you pour the blood of the chicken that you just shecht, like, on the side of your head that is hurting. You just have to make sure that it doesn't, like, get into your eyes. Venivdahar midame de lo le samnihu le ene litleya besefa de vacha. It's like, and then you take, like, I mean, if you got like blood inside your eyes, then you would become blind from it. So what you do also is, like, after you've like gotten like the blood on the side of your head, you take the wild chicken and you hang it on the doorpost of your house, right? Dechi ayal ayef ba, vechi nakif chayef ba. And it's like every time that you go in or out of the house, you're going to touch the chicken is going to like brush against you, and it's going to make sure that your migraine doesn't come back. All right, if you have any issues with your eyes now, actually, Rashi says that it's cataract, but he also refers to it as like a different kind of like eye ailment with, like, where you can see spots in front or something. You have to find a scorpion, and that scorpion has different spots of different colors on its back, right? 7 colors specifically. Betula, you put it to dry out in the shade. Venishchok, and then you take that scorpion and you grind it. Tarte minta kochala vechata menta mine. And then you have, like, you take 2 parts of like one of like the a powder that you would use, and then 1 part of the ground scorpion. You mix them together. And then you take 3 doses of this and you apply it to your eye, and then 3 doses to the other eye. Tafelo limale. And you have to make sure not to use more than 3 parts of this. De'ilo pekach ene, because if you use too much of it, your eyes can actually burst. How lovely. What doesn't kill you, like, makes you stronger, right? Les chavrirés de Laila, it's like you have people who don't see during the night, and it's actually, I know people like that. Neyate shudara bakrai, you actually need to make a rope made out of hair of an animal. So you can use, like, for example, the tail of a horse or the tail of a cow. Veneser hada kara mine, and then you tie that rope that you have made to your own legs. Vechada kara mikalva. And then you're going to tie the other side of the rope to a dog. Venitrefu unuke chatzpa chabare. And then you should have, like, children around, like, in the neighborhood that should have, like, some kind of, like, I don't know, groggers, made out of pottery that they actually rattle behind the person who has, like, who's tied to the dog. And then he should say, like, no, the children should say this incantation: Asa kalba, achsa tarnegola, old dog, mad rooster, veligbe shav umtse mishiv'a bate. And then this man, he's supposed to go to 7 different houses, and he's supposed to be asking for, like, a piece of raw meat. Veletvinehu venihale betzinora derasha. And then each person in the house would give him, like, a piece of meat in the doorway of their own home. Venachlinehu bekelkule de mata. And then he should take all the meat that he collected from these 7 houses, and he should go to the city, like, dumps, and that's where he should eat it. Betar achi, after that, livshot shudra barka, he should like now untie himself from like the animal hair rope that he has on his leg, like, that he's attached to the dog. Venimru achi, and then the children should say, Shavrere de ploni bar plonita, the blindness of this person, the son of that woman, shevaknehu le ploni bar plonita, and then it should leave this person, son of like this woman, and blah, blah, blah. Ulerechu lechalba bevavita de'ene. And then finally, they should actually blow into the pupil of the dog. I mean, you try it and you tell me how that works for you. Okay. Leshavrere demema. So for people who actually cannot see during the day, late shiv'a sumke megavai de chavata. It's like you have to go and slaughter 7 animals and take the spleen of each of them. Venitvitenehu avsaka de umana. And then you need to roast them. And you roast them like in this kind of container that has been used for letting out the blood. That's something that like was common, like, actually there's still people that do that. It's like, to let out the blood because they felt that that was, the blood was not, was what was causing them illnesses. So this is like a disgusting kind of container. Veletiv ihu megavai. And then the person who's blind, right, and cannot see, he should sit inside his house. Ve'inish acharina be'abarai. And then another person who actually can see well, that person would be sitting outside of that person's house. Ve'nimat le ivara. And he would say, the blind man would say to the man who could see who's outside, Hav li de'echol. Give me some of those spleens so that I can eat. Venemale ahayir peticha, and so the one who could see would tell him, Sav echol, here, take, like, and eat. Uvatar de achil, after he's eaten, litbare leafspa, he should actually take like that disgusting container and she should break it. Dei lo chadre ilave, and because if he doesn't break it, then he might become blind again. Ledima, so now we go moving on to like we're going down. So we did the head and we did the eyes, and now we're going to the nose. So what happens if you have a nosebleed? Actually, I'm going to tell you that out of all the things in this sugya, these are the ones that make the most sense. So you'll see why. Ledima de ate min hira. Lete gavra kohen deshme Levi. You need to find a man who is a Kohen, but whose name is Levi. Okay, that's not the part that makes sense. Velichtov le Levi le mafrea. So, and he needs to write his name backwards, right? Ve'ilo, if you can't find someone with that name, leyete inush ma'alma, you find a man, venichtov le, and that other person should actually write for you, Ana kapi shila bar sumach le mafrea, and he should say, like, he should write I papi shila bar sumki, also backwards. Ve'ilo, and if you can't find anyone who's going to do that, nichtov le achi, he should write ta'em deli beme kesef, taste like, the taste of the bucket in the silver water, ta'am deli beme vegam. It's the same taste as like, in water that is disgusting. Okay, so ve'ilo, if that doesn't work, liete ikara de aspatta. So you should take the root of like a plant that is called aspatta. It's something actually that was used to give to the animals to eat. Ve'ashla de furaya atika. And then you take the rope of an old bed. We learn in Moed Katan that the beds at the time were made out of ropes that were intersected. Ve'kurtesa umorike, rag paper and saffron. Ve'sumka de luliva, and then the red part of like a lulav. Ve'niklehu bechade hadade. You burn them together until they actually turn into ashes. Veleyate gavra de'amra. And then you take a ball of wool, venigdol tarte petilata, and you twist like that fiber into like two strands, velitmish, like, like this, velitmish tarte petilata, no, velitmish bechala, and then you actually dip it in vinegar, venigdabel bekitma haden, and you roll them in the ashes, venetiv benithere, and you put it inside ish of the nostril. So this for me is like how you cauterize the nose, okay? I mean, like a little weird way and whatever, but hey, vinegar, maybe not like so far-fetched. Anyways, and definitely like the twisting like of the rope, like we do that with like, tissue or gauze or whatever it is. Anyway, the ilo, if that doesn't work, lechize amat hamayim de azlat mimizrach kalpe ma'arav. You should actually find a canal that with water that flows from east to west, veniftar, and you should step over it. Venikum chad kar'a lehai gisa, you should stand with one foot on one side of the stream, vechad kar'a lehai gisa, and the other foot on the other side. Venishkol tina bede de maina metute kar'a dismole, and then you should take mud that's with your right hand that's under your left foot, and then uvide dismola mitute kar'a de yamine, and then you should take with your left hand, you should take like mud that's under your left foot, venigdol tarte petilata de amra, and then you twist two strands of wool, venitmish betina, and you put them in the mud that you took from like under your left foot, under your right foot, venetin benechire, and then you put it inside each of your nostrils. To me, that's a cataplasm minus like the jumping around is like this this game Twister where they tell you put your hand like on the red and like your leg on the yellow and whatever. That's what it sounds like here. The ilo, if none of this works, litev tute mirazva, you should actually sit under a water spout, venaitu maya, and someone should bring water, velishdu ale, and then pour it onto like, through the spout of water onto your, onto your head, velimru, and they should say, just like these waters are going to stop because there's so much water that you're going to pour. So the blood of so and so should, son of so and so should actually stop. Okay. So we're moving down now to the mouth. So the bleeding of the mouth. Batkinan le begila dechitata. So it's like, when you have like blood in your mouth, one of the things that they did is they took like a straw of wheat and they put it inside the mouth of like, of the patient. Isarich, if the blood actually stuck to the straw, like, it's like it's not liquid, it's more like solid. Maria ke ate veit le decanta, then it means that it's actually coming from the lungs, and that's bad news enough, but there is there's a way to actually remedy to it. Ve'ilo mechavda ke ate velet le takanta. If it doesn't stick, if it's like a runny like blood, it means that it's coming from the liver, and then that's really bad news because there's nothing that you can do to actually heal it. Amar le Rav Ami le Rav Ashi. So now we're talking about like, he's concentrating on this whole thing about the liver and the lungs. The anan epechat nan, but that's not the same that we learned in the Mishnah, right? Because we have a Mishnah in Chulin that talks about all like all the things that make an animal trefa, right? What's a trefa? It's an animal that has like some kind of like mum that cannot be actually healed, or it's missing something, or it's punctured, or it's like, so whichever way it is, it's something that is like, you can't do anything about. Nital akaved velo nishtayer hemena klum. So let's say that there is no liver whatsoever, right, in the body of this animal, or like, hopefully not the human being, ereya shenikba o she chasara. It's like, or if like what about if the lung was actually punctured, or it wasn't like, fully working? I mean, it's like, try and breathe. If you have a punctured lung, I think that it's quite difficult. So here, he's thinking that the Mishnah in Chulin seems to be implying that the a punctured lung is like actually much more serious than an injury to the liver. Amarle, kevan de mipune ta'atai, it's like, since the blood that's coming from the mouth, amar eta muche itamach, so we are going to say that actually the liver is completely gone. It's completely, there's nothing left of it. It's degenerated. And that's why the blood, like, came out through the mouth, because it seems that it's like not that common for the blood to come out of the mouth if it would came like from the lungs. Amarmar, so we're going back to like, what is it that we can do about that? Matakante. So what is it that we, how can we remedy to this? Leyete shiv'a kune mipirma de silka. So you take 7 fistfuls of sliced beets, veshiva kune pirma dechate, and then you take 7 also fistfuls of like sliced leeks, vechamisha kune prida, and then 5 of this thing that is called prida, which Rashi says is like some kind of herb that comes from the wood of a wild cherry tree. I'm just reading like the note on the art scroll because I wouldn't know that for my life. Utalta kune de taltache, and then you take 3 fistfuls worth of lentils, vechuna de chamuna, 1 of cumin, vechuna de chavle, and 1 of chavli. And chavli is actually, it's like, a little bit, we don't know what it's doing here and what it's referring to, because normally chavli is a rope. And so we don't think that we should be mixing like a rope together with this. So it must be some kind of another, it might be another herb. Ukenedach kanta petirta, and then you take the same amount of the fat of the intestine of a firstborn animal. Okay, and so that has to equal the amount of all the other, like, ingredients together. And so you should cook all of this together and eat it. And then you should drink some very strong wine. Very strong wine can refer to either one of 2 things. It's like, it's like the month of Tevet was when they actually made like, most of the wines, and they were like extremely, and so they were like fermented like fairly strongly. The other way is like that we can understand it. It's like, it could be like, very strong beer. Lechacha. So if you have problem like with your molars, Amar Rabba Rav Huna, Leite Tuma Yechida'a. So you bring a head of garlic, but on that head of garlic, there should be only a single clove. U nerimse b'mishcha milcha. You grind it together with some oil and some salt. V'netave atufraye deliona. And then you put it on like, the nail of your thumb. Dehahu gisa dechayev le. And then it has to be on the hand of the side where your molar aches. Venehader le gedanfa dilesha. And then around that thumb, you actually put a ring of dough. Venizdahar levisre. And then you should pay attention that the garlic actually does not touch the flesh. It should only touch like, the nail of the thumb. De cache lechivara, because if it does actually touch your skin, then you can end up with tzara'at. Lechinche, if you have tonsillitis, so tonsillitis is like, an inflammation of the tonsils, which are at the back of like your throat. And what happens is when it's very inflamed, then it has like usually it has an abscess and it has pus and it's horrible and you can actually choke on it. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, chumtai ki mamru. It's like you have to use like this thing that is called leaves of the pyrethrum, and it's actually as good as an herb that is called bold money. Ve'ikara dechumte harif mamamru, or the root of the pyrethrum plant. We say that it's even actually better than that bold money plant. Veninkod befume, and you should keep them in your mouth for a certain amount of time. Hanelekume, and that would actually stop the swelling. So this is not over because it's actually 3 steps, like for tonsillitis. Okay, so the second step is levashule. So you need like an abscess to actually like, you need the pus to like, get into like a specific place so that then you can make it burst and get rid of it. So levashule leyete par e deresh nafaya. So you bring bran from the top of the sieve when you're like collecting like actually the sieving bran. Ve'taflache be'afarayahu, and then lentils that are in like in the soil. Ve'shuvli lita and fenugreek. Ve'chumrata dershuta, and then hop blossom. Ve'enkot ke'amugoza kefume, and then you take like about the size of a nut of like this whole mixture that you put together and you put it in your mouth, like, as far back as you can. Now you want to like make sure that the abscess is up to the point that it's going to burst so that you can drain it. Linpach le chavre tachle hivarata begila dechitata. So another person should actually take a straw, and in that straw, they should put like seeds of white cress, and then they should blow inside the person's mouth with that straw so that the seeds go to the back of the throat. Le asuke, and then after that, like, so that the abscess is going to burst. Leyate afara mitula devet hakise. You should bring like dirt from the shade of the outhouse. Venigbol berudvasha venuchal. And then you should mix it with honey and eat it. The amle le, it's supposed to be very effective for this. Okay, don't know about that. Levarsam. So now if you have like an inflammation of like of like the nostrils and it's like in the certain cavities, leyete kiki pisteka denishdur. So you take like a volume, cedar cones volume of ammoniac, vechi ameguza dechel benita duvshenita, and then a nut size of sweet galbanum, umele tarvada duvsha rivara, and then a spoonful of white honey. Umele natla bat mechoza chamra nekida, and a revit of like a clear wine. Venishloknihu bechade hadade, and you boil all of them together. Vechi bashil neshadur bashil lekule, and then once the ammoniac has been cooked down, then you actually drink this potion. So just for those who don't know, ammoniac is actually Clorox. So yeah, I don't know about that. Ve'ilo lete reviata de chalva de iza hivrati. Then, another way that you could get healed from this is bring a revit of milk, but from a white goat. Be careful, it has to have the right color of skin. Venitiape atlat kilche karava, and then you let it drip, that milk, you let it drip over 3 cabbage stalks that are put in a dish. Venivchashe begavza demachmehin, and then you stir like this potion with a twig of marmahin, which is like a tree, and you cook it together. Vechi bashil gavza bemarmehin Bashil lekule, when everything has been cooked together, then you should drink it. Ve'ilo leyate nafke de chalad irvaya. It's like if that doesn't work, then you bring the excrement of a white dog, venigbol benatfa, and then you mix it together with balsam and you eat it. Vechama de afshar, but if it's at all possible, nafka lo nechal de dim farek. But it's like, it would be best actually if you could avoid, eating that because it's not good for the limbs. So here we actually see a first reference to side effects of something that could be good for you for one part of your body, but is going to affect something else. So actually, Rabbanim comment a lot on that. It's like, should you actually take a medication that is good for you, to heal you, but it's going to have such severe side effect that it's kind of like gonna make you sicker. So Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says that sometimes some of these trufot are like worse than the disease itself, and some of these side effects are really awful. But if the pain of the disease is worse than the side effects, then you're supposed to take the medication. But at the same time, we need to remember that you need to trust HaKadosh Baruch Hu to actually heal you. Another thing is like Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky says that if it's not okay, if you take something that is so strong that is going to potentially kill you. So it's like, what is the worst of two evils? Legera, leyate gera delilta. So you have the arrow of Lilith, which is like some kind of I think it's also like some kind of a it's a meteorite stone. I mean, normally Lilith is it's a female demon. So it's like, so these kind of special stones are obviously very, very strong in terms of helping out. Venefeche, you turn it in, upside down. Veniche maya ilave, venishte, and then you pour water over this stone and then you drink the water. Ve'ilo leyateni mai de ishti de ishte minaihu talba belela. It's like you should actually drink water from a dish where a dog has drank from it. Venizri dahar megiluya. But you should be paying attention that the water has actually not been left uncovered. This is something that we learn I don't remember if it's in Brachot, about the water that is not covered at night and in a place where you have snakes and the snakes can drink from it and they have diseases, so it can make you really sick. But it's nowadays we don't live in places where there's snakes. So bisman hazeh, it's not it's not something that should be something that we should be worried about, yet there's a lot of people that are very machmirim about it. Legiluya. So for drink, if you have water that was left uncovered, anpaka de chamra chayai. So, and then you drink if you have if you drank still this water that was left uncovered, because we don't want you to get sick from this snake disease, then you actually drink about a revi'it of this of wine that has not been diluted in water. Lemursa anpaka de chamra be'ahala tol'ana. It's and if you have an abscess, then you should drink revi'it of wine that you mix with red aloe. So what other things could happen to your heart? Lepicha de liba. So people who have a tendency to faint. Leyete telat berushiata dis asare. You bring 3 loaves of barley bread. Venishterinihu bechamka de lo avad ilave arba'in yomin. And you have to soak them in chamka. Chamka is like kutach. It's like one of those dips that is made with old bread and milk. And so here it has to be 40 days old. Venechul venishte abatrayehu chamra marka. And it's so you eat those loaves of bread, of barley bread that are soaked in the chamka. And after that, you drink wine, but this time you want wine that has been watered down. Amar le Rav Acha de mifti le Ravina. So this guy says, V'chol sheken defarach libe. I mean, this is like, this is definitely not the way to go about it. If you actually give this guy who has a tendency to faint, like this chamka and these like, and this like watered down wine, these are not like, good kind of like food. He's definitely going to faint. So Ravina is telling him, Amarle, ana leikura deliba amre. So it's like, actually, this is not for the one who is faint of the heart. This is for someone who has a heavy heart. Lefirtra deliba. It's like, for someone who actually has fainting spells, this is what we do. Leyete talat berushayata dechite. You take 3 loaves of wheat bread. Okay, so not barley bread, wheat bread. Venishterinihu beduvsha. And you soak them in honey. Venechul, and then you eat them. Venishte abat chayahu chamra hayai. And then you drink actually wine that is very strong, because if you have fainting spells, then you need like something to strengthen you up. So it's like, this is what you need to do. Letzricha deliba, if you have like heart palpitations, let's say, liyete telat be'ed ninia, you take like a mint about the size of 3 eggs, u ve'ata de chamuna, 1 egg volume of cumin, u ve'ata de shum shime, and then the same volume of sesame, ve'le'echol, and then you should eat them together. Lecheev me'e. Now we go to like, we keep on going down. So now we're talking about the intestines. Leyetetelat me'a pilpele arichata. You take 300 kernels of long peppers. Excuse me. V'chol yoma nishte me'a minainhu bechamra. And then every day, for 3 days, you actually drink 100 of those peppercorns inside your wine. Ravin demin narash evad la levarete de Rav Ashi. Like, so the daughter of Rav Ashi actually, like, she had like terrible stomach aches. Mea vechamishin mehane devan vetasia. And so he prepared this for her, but with like 150 peppercorns, and she was like cured immediately. Levirtza, so someone who has like, a worm inside their intestines, if you know anything about that, it's like, these are people who end up being extremely thin because the worm eats up what's inside, so they can never gain any kind of weight. Anpaka de chamra be'atrafa de ar'a. So that person should actually drink like, a revi'it of wine. Inside that wine, you would put a bay leaf. Lerichza irvaya, another way to cure this, but that would be for a worm that's actually a white intestinal worm. How they would know that it's white, who knows? Leyete bizrach galgila. So you take the seed of a rocket plant. Rocket is actually like a salad. Venit savre de beshistag. You actually wrap it in a cloth of cotton. Venitaire bemai, and then you soak it in water. Venishte, and then you drink the water that in which that cotton has been soaked with that seed. Venidehar mibinta, and you should pay attention not to actually eat the kernel. De'i lo makva la le ma'ayane. Because one of the things that it could do is like it could actually puncture your intestines. So it must be like, that kernel must be like pointy. Lemesar, so someone who has problems with their bowels. Sisin retiva bemaye, it's like you soak pennyroyal in water. Lemishra, and then someone who's constipated. Veshta bemaya, and it's like you take dry pennyroyal and you soak it in water. Vesimanach, and it's like something that's like too easy to remember. Itza retiva de sachar nehara. It's like, when it's like fresh and it's not dry, then it opens up like, it opens up like the river. Well, meaning like you wouldn't be constipated anymore. Letachala, so if you have a bloated spleen, leyate chef bine de maya, you bring 7 water leeches, v'naibeshinehu betula, you dry them out in the shade, v'chol yoma nishte tarte telata bechamra, and every day for 3 days in a row, you're going to drink 2 or 3 of these of these water leeches. Letai techala de tziparta de lo iptach, if that's ve'ilo, I'm sorry, and if that doesn't work, you take the spleen of a she-goat, but it has to be one that did not have any offsprings, venetachia benatura, and then you take that spleen and you press it inside your oven, and then you stand next to the stove and you say, Ki achi devayesh hai techala, just as the way that this spleen is going to dry up, nebayesh terlachia pelioni bar plonita. It's like it should actually dry up the spleen of this person who is the son of this woman. Ve'ilo, if you don't have an oven, nitaicheu bene orve deveta chadta, then you should take the spleen of the animal and you should put it in between the bricks of your house, nemeta achi, and you should say the same thing that you said before. Ve'ilo, if that still doesn't work, livke shecheva deshachiv beshabata, then you should find out about someone who has died on the day of the Shabbat. Venishkele leyade venotava atlahe, and then you should take the hand of the niftar and put it on your spleen. Venema ki echi devayesh ha yada, and you should say the same way that this hand dried up, nebayesh techalia de ploni bar plonita. So would like the spleen of like so and so, son of so and so, should dry up. So we know actually that you're not supposed to get anaa from a niftar. That's a very big thing, which is like, it's a very weird kind of like thing that to do is like to go and find someone who has died. But the Khatam Sofer actually says that if you are in a situation of sakana, then it is, and that this refuah has been proven to be effective, then you are allowed to do it. But most Rabbanim are actually like very machmirim when it comes to that. You're not supposed to be touching a met altogether. So yeah. Ve'ilo netia benita. It's like, if that doesn't work, then you should actually take a fish, venitvaye benafcha, and roast it in the coals that a blacksmith uses, venechle b'maya de nafcha, and then you actually eat it after you have dipped it in the water that the blacksmith is using, like to cool off like his iron. And after that, you should drink that water. So it's like, the Gemara is actually like, it's like, what are you talking about? It's like you have like, okay, so you use like, a she-goat, and she would like drink. What about if she drinks like, the water from the blacksmith? Ishtachit velo ishtakach la techala. When she's slaughtered, guess what? Her spleen is gone. She doesn't exist. It's like already, it completely have dissolved. So why do you think that drinking like the water from the blacksmith, like, where he put his iron in it, is actually going to be effective? It doesn't seem like it's like effective. Ve'ilo, so at least like, someone here is like saying, hello, we have issues with some of these remedies. Lefita chavita de chamra lishme. If that doesn't happen, then you know what? Open a barrel of really good wine and have a good drink. I would go for that without a problem. Amar le Rav Acha bere de Rava le Rav Ashi, itle chavita de chamra. It's like, okay, someone who has like their own barrel of wine, He doesn't need to go to anyone to ask for, like, medication for his blooded spleen, because if he's drinking really good quality wine, he's never going to have any kind of these issues. So basically, they're pointing out to the fact that they might not have been eating and drinking properly, and that's what caused a lot of their physical issues. Ela, if someone does not have the means to buy themselves, like, good quality wine, meragel bepat shacharit. He should actually make sure to eat bread in the morning, every morning, de me'alia lechule gufe, because it's actually great for the entire body. And I should point out that that's actually what the Rambam actually suggests in terms of doing, like, every single day. It's something that is really good for you to start your day with bread. So if you have, like, hemorrhoids, like, you bring acacia, aloe, ve'asapircha umaratachta, quicksilver, litharge, וחומרתה בדפילון שאיפרה דחמימתה, and the filen locket. It's like, it's like herbs that actually look like grapevine. And like they say that it's in a locket because apparently women used to put it like as a what do you call, on them, and they would, so that it would, like, actually smell good. And dove excrement, וננקט בשחקי דכתנה דבקייתה. And then they wrap all of this in rags of so during the summer, of flax is linen, amar gufna besitva, and during the winter, in cotton. And then you would put it, like, in the place where you have, like, the hemorrhoids. Ve'ilo, if that doesn't work, leshite shicha marka, then have the patient actually drink some watered down beer. Much much easier than all of that. Okay, so what about if they have, like, women who have problems? Well, not only women, for people who have problems with, like, their hips, le shigrona, leyate patia demunine. You bring, like, a pot of, like, you put a small fish in it, and you make a brine out of it. Venigadre shitin zimne aha bemitchate, and then you roll it 60 times, like, this brine of fish, like, on your hip. Veshitin dimne aha metachtate, and then you do it 60 times on the other hip. Lemitzrata, it's like someone who has, like, a urinary tract infection, or it has, like, or someone who has, like, gallstone. Naite telat nitufaita mishacha dechufra. So you bring 3 drops of tar oil, which really smells very disgusting. I mean, we know that tar smells really badly. Tar oil is the same. Vetelat nitupaita itzara dechate, and 3 drops of leek extract. Utelat nitupaita dechamara dekida, and 3 drops of clear wine. Leshide leish be'ama, for a man, you put it inside his member. Veleisha be'otomakom, and for a woman, it's like, inside, like, her vagina. Ve'ilo leyete une dezika, if that doesn't work, you use the ear of a flask. Velitle leish be'ama, for a man, you hang it from his member. Veleisha bedadin, and from the woman, like, you hang it from her breast. Ve'ilo, and if that doesn't work, leyetechuta dezehorita desharate duma bat duma, you bring a red thread that actually has been spun by a woman who has the reputation of being immoral, and who is the daughter of a woman who is herself immoral. Velitle leish be'ama, for a man, you hang it to his member. Veleisha bedadin, and the woman from her breast. Ve'ilo, if that doesn't work, leyate kina dezachar venekeva, you bring lice one from the body of a man, one from the body of a woman, and for the man you hang it from his member, and woman from in the same place. And when the patient is going to urinate, nashtin asisna yevashta vetinora vededasha. It's like, when they have to go and actually urinate in the doorway of their house with this dry thorns. Unihayan bechumrata denafka mine. And then let him, like, make sure that this way the stone is going to come out of his body. De amalaya lechulhu tzimra. And then that stone is, like, also a good thing, like to use, like when you have fever. Okay, a little bit more. If you have fever, that's like more like, an outside fever. You don't feel like that your body inside, but more on the outside of your body. You take 3 se'ah of date pits, utelata givre atraf adare, and 3 se'ah of leaves of the eder, which is apparently a very valuable tree. Venishlukinhu kol chad lechude, and you boil them separately, not together. Velitev benehu, and then you sit in between those 2 containers, the one that has like the date pits and the one that has like the leaves of the eder. Letovnihu betarte meshichle, and then you put like so you put them, like, into, like, containers, vedinte petora, and you bring a small table and you put it over those containers, venanach ilave, and then you, like, you rest. And it's like, while you're like on the table, but I'm not sure that I see exactly how it happens. Veneku meilave hai le velotiv ilave hai, you get up from above, like, this basin, you move the table, you sit down above the other one. Oh, okay. So you put the table and you sit on top of the table, which is on top of like the container, the basin. And then you're going to move and you're going to do it the same thing on the other side. So you do it like, after that, you move the table back and you go back to the first basin and you go like back and forth and back and forth. Ad denesak be halva, and then it's like, the vapor from like these the water that is like, in this container with like the pits of the dates or the leaves of the eder is going to like actually come into like, your body. Ve'lislach minehu, and then you're going to wash with those waters and drink from them. I guess they didn't know about Vicks back then. Vechishte memai de adara lishte, and so you're like, let him drink but when you drink, you only drink the water of the leaves of the eder. You don't drink the one with the pit. Memai de souffle lo lishte, you should not drink like the water from the date pit. Mishum deme akre, because you can become like, sterile and not be able to have children after that. Letzimra gavna, if you have like, a fever really that you feel inside of your body, leyate shiv'a bune de silka meshev mesha'are. You take 7 fistfuls of beets from 7 different beets, like, places, right? Not all from the same one. Venishlukinhu be'abreyahu, and you boil them together with like the mud that comes with them. If you see, like, if you buy like, beets that are like natural at the market, they're not all clean and they're like, whatever. There's still like some mud that adhere to them. Venechol, and then you eat them. Venishte atraf adara beshicha, and then at that point of time, you drink actually the mixture of the leaves of the eder that you had before in beer, or anve telata b'mayim, or the grapes of a vine that actually was like over a palm tree, and you mix it with water. I think we're gonna stop for these for today. That was a handful. But it's fun to see like that they actually tried like a lot of things, and I'm sure that some of these things, like, actually worked in their own way. So, but I don't recommend any of it. So have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Desperation, the buffalo dragged the predators into a nearby lake.